How's it going, everyone? It's Gadgets Boy. Welcome to another video. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the latest Kia Niro, and this is one of the three powertrains available. This is the hybrid version. There's also a fully electric and a plug-in hybrid, and I hope I get to drive the fully electric version later on in the year. But for now, we're going to be looking at this hybrid version, which has seen some subtle updates here and there, which we'll go through in terms of the design as well. And inside, we have some latest tech to bring this up to date and bring it in line with the rest of the Kia family. And I believe the Niro is actually one of the best selling cars for Kia in Europe. And you can understand why. It's got loads of practicality and in terms of space in the car as well. And it's family friendly. It's a nice compact SUV. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about the design, and then we're going to look at the inside of the car as well, and then take it for a drive and see what that drives like. And starting with the front of the car, when it comes to the design, it looks fantastic. I think the grille looks very bold, and you got this nice silver line that goes all across the front and that carries on the back as well, which I'll show you guys in a minute. And that silver detail also goes on the grille and then the bottom as well, which looks fantastic. I think it gives it a modern look and a very, very bold look as well. And you got the big Kia logo placed on the front there. I kind of like the new Kia logo as well. And then we have the daylight running lights, which looks a bit like the ECG heart rate monitor signature that you see when you're monitoring your heart rate, and it looks fantastic. I think they've done a great job with the front of the car. There's not a bonnet crease as such on there, which is okay. It's not a fast sports car. It's meant to be a family car, so it's meant to be looking friendly on the road, if I may say so. So I think it looks fantastic all in all in terms of the design. And I love this color as well, and this sort of like greenish looking color looks fantastic. I think it's called like Cityscape Green or something like that. That's the color we've got here. It's available in other colors as well, so you can spec it up. But this one here is the top spec version, so I'll show you what's top spec about it as well. It's full of tech and all that kind of stuff. Let's move on to the side of the car where things continue in terms of the design. So we can see here we have slightly longer car as well. It's slightly wider, slightly bigger in general, and you've got slightly longer wheelbase, giving us more room inside of the car. So in this one, we get the 18-inch alloys, and you can also spec it for a smaller version. I think you can get 16 on this one, on this particular model. And you've got that black detail on the cladding here that goes on the front and the back. The wheel arches aren't too wide out, they're not too big, but it suits this car. I think it suits the car. And the mirrors as well, they fold in and out when you unlock and lock the car, which is really good. You got the blind spot monitor on there. And I think all in all, when you look at the car, it just looks pretty fantastic. I think it makes a statement of what Kia's trying to go for here. Something that looks modern, at the same time, not too sporty, looks compact SUV, and still looks really nice on the road. Moving on to the back of the car, things get a little bit different on the back here, because we get this sort of bold, I don't even know what to call this, tab on the side of the car, which looks kind of interesting. I think the designer started on the front, they got interested, they were happy with it, and then they got to the back, they just got a bit confused as to what to do with the car. But fair play to Kia into being bold and just sticking it on the side of the car. Depending on which color you go for, this is obviously matching with the rest of the black detailing of the car, which is fine. But if you did get this in a different color and you change the color of this, it might start to look a bit odd. There's something interesting about this side though. There's a little air duct that goes through this gap here. And what that allows is for better aerodynamic, less drag on the car. So it channels the air through that and it comes out just behind the brake lights on the back. Talking about the brake lights, I actually like the way they look as well. I like the bold look. It's very big. It looks very Volvo-esque if you look at it. But it's kind of disappointing that although this is very visible for people behind you to see and just all around you in general, the indicator light is not integrated here. The indicator light is placed just at the bottom of the bumper on the back, which I think they should have integrated that on there for sure. And then on there as well, you have the fuel refilling area, so you can open that up and refill the car up with petrol in this case. We'll talk more about the engine when we get inside the car, where we'll take it for a drive. On the back, things aren't looking as exciting as it does on the front, and even the side for that matter. I think, in my opinion, it looks quite boring. There's not a lot going on. It's not that exciting. You've got the Kia logo there, you've got the Niro there, and then on the other side is HEV for hybrid vehicle. So there's not a lot going on at all, but we do get a big boot space though. So inside here, we open it up and you can almost fit myself in the boot. And I also love the fact that they've included the board that goes, the parcel shelf is not a hard material. I love the flexi material which means you can easily just fold it away. You can easily just place it there without destroying it, without taking up space at all. So that's really good, and I love that there's a lot of space. You can also fold the rear seats as well to get a bit more space in there. You get more than 400 litres of space in this, which is really good. And depending on which powertrain you go for, if you go for the electric version, you might lose some space because of the battery that's placed in there. If you get the plug-in hybrid, you lose some space as well, but this one, I think you get a bit more space. Inside the all-new Niro, everything looks very premium in here. You've got vegan leather, you've got mix of recycled materials all around the car, both back and front. But starting with the back of the car though, we have plenty of room for the passengers that are sat at the back. I'm about 5'11", and there's plenty of room for my knees, and there's plenty of room for my feet to be tucked away underneath the seat. And also we got heated seats on the back, which is quite interesting. I love that they've included that. We have 2 USB-C ports that's placed on the seats in front. Unfortunately, you don't get that button that you see in like the Kia EV6, for example, that allows you to easily move the seat backwards and forwards without having to get out of the car. So if I was the driver by myself, I'll have to lean over to move the passenger seat on the front or get out and do it. Elsewhere, we do have cup holders on the door cards, which is really good. And we've also got armrests. This armrest is interesting though, because it has a cup holder there, 2 cup holders, but it doesn't close. So once you've done with it, you'd have to just still have it there. So it's quite interesting, but you can just tuck it away when you don't want to use that armrest. There's a bit of a transmission tunnel here, which means that anyone that sat in the middle, which you can sit someone in the middle, just means that they'll have to raise their knee quite up higher compared to everyone else, which is okay. I mean, for long distances, you'd be fine. There's still plenty of room, plenty of space, which means you can fit 1 extra person, another adult, I reckon, in the back. You do get your AC 220 volts charging port here as well, or plug-in port, so you can plug in your laptop there, for example, or if you just want to hoover the car, you can just plug in your vacuum cleaner and you're good to go. There's also a sunroof added to this one, although the actual blind you have to manually open, but the actual roof itself fully opens, so you can just use the button on the front there, while the driver can operate that and open that and let some air in, let some sunshine in on a beautiful day like this in England right now. So I quite love the space in the back. It feels very airy, it feels really nice and comfortable, and I think I can sit here comfortably well for a long period of time, for a long journey, with no problems at all. Up front, the premium quality carries on as well. There's plenty of like different materials that's been used, soft material, cushy. It just feels fantastic. I love it. And the seats, again, vegan leather, and you've got all the tiny holes in it because they are heated as well, so you can have heated seats, which is great. And I think there's plenty of space to hide things and place things as well. There's a cup holder available on the car doors, on the door cards. So there's also more space here, cubby hole here where you can put your keys, for example. There's another space here we can place other things. There's 2 cup holders here where you can also hide it to get more space, so you can push the button there to release it and place your cups there. If you do have a skinnier sort of bottle like my can of Coke here, it just means this will move around quite a bit. It will dangle a lot when you're moving around. So bigger bottle, no problems at all. And then we have plenty of buttons here. For example, we've got ones for the climate controls. You got one for the heated seats to ventilate them as well, which is pretty cool. So on a hot day like this, I can ventilate my seat and feel nice and cool while I'm driving along. You got your electronic parking brake. You got the rotary dial gear shifter, which is cool as well. I think we're seeing that already in like the Kia EV6, for example. You got the start engine button over there. And then moving on forward to the front of the car, you get a Qi wireless charging mat. So if you have a compatible device, you'll be able to charge your smartphone wirelessly. You have your 12-volt ports, you have a full USB port and a USB-C port as well. You can connect your smartphone and do things like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and they work really well. Although I think Android Auto doesn't take advantage of that big screen in front there. There's also heads-up display, which is great. It means you can keep your eyes on the road. And even though you can move the steering up and down and inside and forwards towards you as well, that can block the instrument cluster. So it's good that they've got a head-up display, which gives you all the vital information that you need, like your speed and even the music that you're playing, that kind of stuff. You can select which content you want to place in that area. On the steering itself, you have plenty of buttons available. One side is your media area and voice control stuff. Voice control, not the best. And on the other side is things that you use for your smart cruise control, which we'll talk more about when we drive and when we go through the infotainment system as well. Elsewhere, you get a rear parking sensor, you got camera systems, you have that 8-inch touchscreen display with DAB radio, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as I mentioned. And there's also a 4.2-inch supervision cluster, that's your instrument cluster. And also, as well as your standard driving assistant technologies, you have things like your forward collision avoidance with car, pedestrian and cyclist recognition and junction crossing. and there's also that smart cruise control. One thing worth mentioning is in terms of the spec and what you get inside of the car is graded according to 2, 3 or 4. So 4 being the top spec. So for the 4th grade, which is the top level, you get head-up display, twin 10.25-inch touchscreen display and instrument cluster. You have heated rear seats, you get that ventilated front seats, front passenger premium relaxation seating, you have a power operated tailgate, electric sunroof, and an updated Harman Kardon premium sound system, which sounds fantastic. You got the driver's side memory seating and electronically controlled seating, front passenger lumbar support, additional technologies which include things like remote smart parking system, which you can use your key fob to do. You got parking collision avoidance system, so PCA. You got optional contrasting C-pillar, which I mentioned earlier. And on all the 4th grade versions, regardless of which powertrain you go for, they all come with that PU vegan leather seat coverings, which contains Tensor from eucalyptus tree. So if that's your thing, you are in for a treat. In terms of pricing, if you go for the grade 2 version, you go for £27,745. If you go for grade 3, you're looking at £30,495. And if you go for the top spec grade 4, you're looking at £33,245. The infotainment system in here looks very familiar. So if you've driven one of the latest Kia vehicles, you straight away know what you're doing. And there's not a lot going on. It's very minimalist and straightforward to use. It starts with the home screen. You can select different profile. And one thing as well is when you get inside of the car, there's easy entry and easy exit, meaning the seats will move backwards or forwards to allow you to enter the car very easily. You got your location at the top there, what the temperature is outside. We've got lovely weather here in the UK at the moment. And then you can slide across to other menu options that you've got there. This will always take you back home right at the top. Your beeps as well, which you can turn off. That's your profile in the corner there, so you can change profile depending on who's driving in the household. You can press that as well for different menu options depending on where you are. And then on the screen here, we have things like your hybrid menu, which shows you all the hybrid information, fuel economy, and how your energy flow and so on. So if you go back, we again get things like map, navigation, etc. What you can also do here is we can go into settings and have a look at what's available. So we've got vehicle settings where we can set things up to do with driver convenience, driver safety, and so on. So here we can go on to, let's go driver convenience. So here we can turn on and off your smart cruise control. So you got motorway driver assist, you got motorway auto speed change as well. You got things to do with like your speed limit and so on, haptic warning for when you go over the speed limit or whatnot, your driver attention as well to make sure that you're not falling asleep whilst you're driving. It's all there for you. Driver safety, you click that, it will give you things like your forward safety warning, lane safety, lane keep assist, blind spot safety, haptic warning. You can change all those settings. You've got plenty of safety options there available to you. You got your speed limiter as well, which is cool. If you go to Eco, we can set things like your smart recuperation and then your green zone drive mode as well. So when you're driving through a certain area, that allows for green zone mode. It will drive in fully electric just to reduce emission from the car. You got heads-up display settings, so you can change the height and the angle as well, and content selection. And for content, you got things like turn info, driver convenience info, blind spot, radio, etc. If we go back out, we can then change things like your cluster as well, so things like the brightness, the theme, and so on, so the driver instrument cluster. You can change your seat settings here as well, which is pretty cool. And if we go back out, we can do further modifications like display settings, the theme, and the layout for this display here. If we go to sound system, you can change the sound system settings as well, so if you know what you're doing with the equalizer, you can adjust that, which is cool. And if we go back out, we can go into general settings, which allows us to just check like things like your system info. So if you ever have to ring up Kia to do anything, you'll be able to give them those information as needed. If we move below to this area, something that we've seen before in the likes of the Kia EV6, you can change this. This is dynamic. So for example, now we've got things like your menu for map, track, radio, media, setup, etc. But if we tap this, this would change the settings completely into climate control settings, which I think is a good use of space. In the future, they could probably change that to multiple things beyond just those two functions. So maybe they can change it in the future, but that kind of future proofs what they can do with that area, which I think is pretty smart. Over to the instrument cluster, you can see all the information that you need, and on the steering you can control the menu, so you can see like your driving information, you can do like your compass, information on tire pressure, and so on. And you got buttons for things like your smart cruise control, so you can change all those settings on your control steering there. One thing that you can't really do here is change the theme here. You have to go into the main settings here. For example, if I go settings, I can change the theme completely for the instrument cluster. So if I go vehicle settings, cluster, I can change the brightness, I can change the tachometer display, I can change the theme as well. So you can link it to driver mode if you want to, or I can change it to classic B, classic dynamic. There's loads of different settings you can do, but usually I just link it to driver mode. So the driver mode button at the bottom here, you can change it to sport, which changes what you see on there. You can change it to eco mode, again, which changes what you see on there. There's also the paddle shift here, but this paddle shift for your energy recuperation, so you can go from max to low, etc. But what's interesting though, which whilst you're driving you notice, is when you press the plus, it actually does the opposite to energy recuperation. So that takes it to, that lowers the level. So you can go up to level 3, or you can just turn it off completely. And then you can do the minus to increase it. So I think that's kind of weird, but that's how you do it. The energy recuperation doesn't give you the one pedal feeling as such, but it does slow down the vehicle enough for you to slow down. If you do it very early enough, it will slow you down enough to come to a full stop, but usually it doesn't give you that. So do bear that in mind if you're looking to get one of these. In terms of powertrain, so this hybrid version has a 1.6 litre GDI, so that's a gasoline direct injection engine, which is paired with a 6-speed dual clutch automatic transmission system. And this combines with a 32 kilowatts, so 43 brake horsepower permanent magnet synchronous electronic motor, which gives the powertrain a combined maximum power output of 139 brake horsepower. They've also removed the reverse gear to save some weight, so they use the first gear and some engine regen stuff to make this work instead. So what you get is the electric motor provides reverse propulsion, which is pretty cool. It eliminates tailpipe emission as well during maneuvers, which is good. And the hybrid can tow up to 1,300 kilograms, which again, if you're going to be taking this on holiday to boost other things, that works really well. One thing I also love is the hybrid version features this thing called green zone drive mode, which basically switches to electric power based on where you are. So if you're going through like a school zone, for example, which is green zone where you don't need to be driving at high speeds, it will go electric only mode to reduce exhaust emission to zero in this environment, which is really good. Of course, this will depend on your battery charge as well. So what does that actually mean on the road? I mean, you're looking at 139 brake horsepower, 225 Newton meters of torque, 0 to 60 in sub 10 seconds also. This is the hybrid version, so you're not looking at a lot of power. If you really want some power, you go for the fully electric version, which gives you a lot more oomph because it is electric after all. The thing is though, it doesn't affect your driver experience. I mean, it does the cornering very well. The steering's quite precise. Even in eco mode, it still handles the road very well. There's plenty of grip there. If you put it into sports mode, things just kind of toughens up a little bit. The steering is really tough in terms of the way that it feels. In fact, you can't do one finger steering on this. That's how stiff it becomes, which is really good. Let's talk about that energy recuperation though. So the paddle shift can be used to control that. So you can go to level 3, which is the maximum level, or level 1, or turn it off completely. And what you can do with that is regain some energy. Basically, that's all it is. We all know what that is already. But the problem with that though is it doesn't give you that one pedal drive feeling even in maximum mode. You can take your foot off the pedal in really good time, and that would allow you to slow down really slowly as much as possible. So if you plan that ahead, that's all good. In terms of the power, it doesn't mean though that you still can't overtake comfortably. You just have to plan it very well. And when pulling out of, say, roundabouts, it does it very well as well. Even with that 0 to 60 numbers, it doesn't really quite feel that slow. I think it's still pretty quick. Where you feel it though is when you get on the motorway and you try to build up that speed. It kind of takes its time to build up speed, which is a shame. I wish it kind of build up speeds faster. But once you get there though, it just goes. It's more than good enough for the intended audience for this kind of vehicle. One thing to mention as well though is that lane keep assist can be intrusive sometimes. So when you put it on, even though when you know what you're doing, it might just pull the steering a little bit and yank it off your hand a little bit. So do bear that in mind. That's something that's quite annoying. You do get your smart cruise control, which works really well. And I also love the fact that it does all that automation things for you in terms of reading the road signs and adjusting the speed accordingly. You'd have to switch that on though, so it's not on by default. At least when I got in the car, it wasn't on by default. So you have to switch that on yourself. Driving around the city and stuff, it feels very nice to drive, very comfortable. I have no issues with it at all. I think on the motorways where you might lose a bit of confidence because you don't get that oomph, you don't get that speed that you normally get with normal cars or faster vehicles or the full electric version, for example. In terms of running costs and that kind of stuff, this is a media drive day. I won't be able to give you that sort of information, but if we do get this in to drive a bit longer, we might be able to get some stats for you, which you'll be able to know all that stuff. It's really hot in England right now. I'm actually sweating in the car right now, but it does have air conditioning, which is good. The head-up display is very visible, which is really good. The A pillar is not in the way. Visibility is amazing. So again, good scores there. I give it full top tier score in that area. When it comes to road noise, you hear it a lot. There's a lot of road noise here, wind noise as well. There's a lot of it, especially when you hit the motorway at higher speeds. You can hear everything. In fact, I feel like I'm talking louder over the sound of the road right now, which that's something to bear in mind as well. It's not the quietest of vehicles. Man, look how sweaty I am. I am sweating, but I'm not complaining at all. I do love the weather. Oh, there goes the collision warning there. So at least we know that it works. I wasn't even going to hit the car. Other areas to bear in mind, something that's become synonymous with technology for me is Kia when it comes to cars. And something that I like about the EV6 is the fact that they do stick that blind spot camera in the dashboard, but we don't get that in this one, which is a bit of a shame. I wish they stick it there so when you indicate, you can see the blind spot area. Additionally, with what you've got in the mirror already, so you can also look at the mirror and also have it in the dash. That's something I really like about the EV6. So it'd be nice to have that in here. In terms of space, I think it feels very spacious. It's nice and comfortable. Like I said, visibility is great. So there's no complaints there at all. When you stick into sport mode, don't get too excited. It doesn't mean that you're going to start racing or driving like you're driving on track. All it means is things become more reactive, but you still get a bit of a lag. So when you press it, there you go, then it picks up. But what you then get is that noise. Again, it feels like I'm shouting over the engine now. You do get that engine noise. That's, you know, when you're riding out the gears, you can hear it's so loud. It feels like the car is struggling to do what you're telling it to do. So that there, I'll give it a very low score in that area. But it is a hybrid car. It's a 1.6 litre engine, and you're not expecting a lot from that sort of engine. And the people that will be driving this car, I doubt they'll be putting their foot down, driving like that everywhere that they go. There's a BMW behind me right now trying to push my buttons. But we're going to push it, push the button, push the pedal, and just head and continue with the journey. And that's everything you need to know about the latest Kia Niro. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below. Is it better? Is it something that you'd go for? Is it reasonably priced? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have any questions, drop them there as well. And in the meantime, as always, please do subscribe, smash the bell notification if this is your first time around here. And also, please like and share this video because it does help me out with the YouTube algorithms and all that stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.